Hi, Christine Armstrong with Exercise Ruckus. We're going to do some follies on the floor today. So this will be a big core activation. You really don't need any weights, but I do recommend you have a small pillow if you're kind of prone to neck issues. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay on the ground, and I want you to try to go back smoothly. So keeping your knees bent, lift your chest and lower yourself down slowly, as I didn't do so gracefully, onto the floor, and then slowly lay down. Now, if that's not possible, then you do it the best way that you can today. We want to work on lengthening our spine and having awareness of our pelvic tilting, whether we're doing an anterior tilt where the front of my pelvis moves forward and down, or a posterior tilt where the front of my pelvis moves up and back. And so learning to find your neutral is kind of the key of what we're doing today. One of the things I notice with my clients that I work with is a lot of them can't lay flat on the floor. If they lay flat on their floor, their chin is usually lifted really high and away, and actually my clip is keeping me from lifting my chin farther away from me. And that's usually just kind of normal process of aging. The forward head position, some people have it worse than others. So what you can do if you observe that your chin is poking up really high towards the ceiling is get a small pillow for your head, because this will allow that chin to be in a more neutral spot, which is better for your neck. You know, you can slowly work on reducing having support on your head, maybe going to half a blanket so that your head isn't quite so high. But we don't want to have to be really working hard extending our neck. Okay, so now we're going to reach overhead, and while this seems like a fairly easy task, there's a little more to it. So what I want you to think about is, where are your bottom ribs? And just pay attention to those bottom ribs, the back bottom ribs. And then you're going to bring your arms just straight up towards the ceiling. Palms are facing each other. And you can first extend through the fingers, right? You can reach and extend, reach and extend. And then what I want you to do is slowly bring your arms overhead and go as far as you can comfortably. So if you can't go all the way to the floor, that's okay. Just go as far as you can comfortably, and do that a couple of times. Just observe what happens at your shoulder blades while you move your arms towards the floor and back to the ceiling again. And now this time, I want you to tuck your shoulder blades underneath you a little bit. So you kind of walk onto your shoulder blades. I usually will give a little push with my legs, pushing my head up towards the top end of my mat. That gives me a little traction in my shoulders. And then now I want you to reach up and down. You don't bend the elbows, but you reach as far away as you can. So your shoulders lift, your shoulder blades lift off the floor. And then I want you to retract them, and I want you to pull your shoulder blades, the back of your shoulder blades come towards each other as you press your shoulders into the ground. So you kind of stretch away from them where your shoulder blades move away from the floor, and then keeping those elbows super straight, fingertips extended, push your shoulder blades into the floor. You'll feel kind of the front of your chest lifts up a little bit. Good, I want you to go through that. This is called a serratus push-up. It's a little bit different awareness, but the shoulder blade needs to be able to wrap around the ribs. And don't take that too literally. It just kind of slowly moves forward onto the rib cage and then more backward towards the rib cage, but it's not really wrapping around, but just kind of that concept. Okay, now do the same thing. Tuck your shoulders in a little bit, give yourself a little traction, and now reach over. And are you able to get farther? Now I notice I have kind of a grumpy right arm, that's this one. And so this is a hard activity for me. My ribs want to pop away. So now I'm gonna bring my arms back. Now I'm gonna nail my bottom ribs to the floor. So I'm not trying to flatten my back, but I am trying to put my back lower ribs on the floor. And then I'll reach overhead, stretching through the fingertips. Move the shoulder blades away from the ears and stretch through your fingertips, really reaching. First, reach through your index finger. That one goes fairly easy. And then try reaching through your pinky finger, and you'll feel the difference as you reach more on the pinky side of your hands. Again, here I'm having to work really hard on my right shoulder to keep my elbow as straight as I possibly can. And then go ahead and bring the arms back. Excellent. Now we're going to try a low cobra. I want you to go cautiously with this one. So anybody with a history of back problems, make sure you have a blanket or two. Some people need two, so you have to find out what's comfortable for you. And if you know you have a bad back, start with two. It's easier to take away. And in that case, I don't have a bad back, but I'm going to demonstrate with this just so that you know. I kind of lay my abdomen so that my bottom ribs get to rest. Maybe I'll come a little lower towards my abdomen, and then that way my lumbar is really well supported. And it's also good to separate your legs a little bit. Okay? So that's to help support you if you have a not so healthy back. Everybody else, you're going to cross your hands, stack your hands right in front of you, and let your ankles fall out to the side towards the outer edges of your mat. And then let your toes fall inward to allow the glute to relax a little bit. And just rest your forehead onto your hands. Lift your elbows a little bit, just to kind of get those working. And let your body settle into this for just a second. Take a few breaths. Don't rush through this. If you do have back problems, I want to suggest that you stay at the lowest level possible and you slowly work your way up. And for some people, just getting to this Sphinx, I call this the Sphinx position. My upper arm is directly under my shoulder. My elbow is bent at 90. My shoulder is bent not quite to 90. I spread my hands really, really wide. That's big. And for those of you with back issues, keep your head a little lower. And I want you to pull your belly away from the floor. So you lift your belly button up towards the back bottom ribs. So the belly button is lifted, and you'll notice as that happens, the pubic bone kind of descends more towards the floor. Then looking at your hands, lift your head slightly, but keep your chin neutral. You don't want to lift your head, that's too much stress on the neck, and you don't want to keep your head completely dropped. Before I go anywhere, I begin to pull my hands, you can see me shift a little bit. I pull my elbows towards my hips. And what that does is you'll feel that pulls the shoulder blades towards each other in your back, but it also opens your front. And that allows you a little more space through the chest. And the point is to let go of the front body to lengthen more so than the back body to bend. So it's more about opening the front body. So again, lift the abdomen, pubic bone goes towards the floor, pull your elbows towards your hips, and you'll feel how your chin can come forward. And then relax for a moment, take a breath. And then now we're going to progress it. However, those of you, I go with caution. If you know you have back problems, stay at this level. Repeat this until you're very, very, very good at it and you don't have any discomfort whatsoever. And then you can slowly work your way up. So first you look at your hands, lift your chest a little bit, spread your collarbones. I separate my shoulders as far away from each other as possible. Press through my thumb and my index finger mounds first as I slowly lift my chest just a little bit. Keep the elbows tucked. And now pull. So I'm pulling my hands towards my hips to get a little extra shoulder activation. And I don't just let go to come down. As I come down, I bring my chest forward. Exhale. Take a breath. On your next inhale, press up. Again, press through the thumb and forefingers. Elbows stay tight. Chin stays in line with the spine. Don't stress your neck. Look slightly forward. Belly in, pubic bone down. And then pull, pull. Open the front body, open the front ribs. And as you come down, keep bringing your heart forward. Keep reaching the heart forward. And then one more. And again, some of you might only get to here, and that's good. Don't discard that. That's a lot of work. This is not a normal movement, and I have pretty good mobility here. Again, I've been teaching it for a while. So again, the head stays in line with the spine. Don't overextend your neck. Shoulders move away from the ears. Push through the thumb and the index finger mounds first. Pull the elbows in towards each other, bellies in, pubic bones down. Pull with your hands, and then maybe you can get a little higher. Good, and then slowly release. Hands and knees, we're going to give our back a little bit of a break. Some of my clients have total knee replacements. So if you haven't had a knee replacement and you shouldn't really be kneeling on your knees, get yourself a big therapy ball or put some pillows or blankets. I can use a couple of blankets. We're not going to be here for that long, but you don't want to be on your knees too much. So there are some alternatives. You can also put your hands on a chair as well, and that works too. Pointer dog. So first you're going to lift the tummy away from the ground, and then you're going to extend one heel. And as I extend my heel, I might turn my toes so it's pointing towards the floor. And I try to push my heel away from me. So I'm reaching the back all the way from my buttock, all the way down to my heel. I'm trying to reach that away from me. The tendency is to lift or drop a pelvis. So we want to try and work to a neutral pelvis. Hey, I have a fly who's found me. Hi, fly. Shoo, fly. So we work with a neutral pelvis, so neither tilted and lifted or dropping, one or the other. Pull your tummy in, and then now slowly, so I have my right leg, I'm going to slowly extend my left hand. So I'm balancing on opposites. Be strong through the support hand. Don't let the arm collapse. Push the heel away. Reach the fingertips away. And really, again, goes back to that reaching with the index finger and then the pinky. And you'll feel the difference as you stretch away. And then release. Take a breath. And then we'll go the other direction. I like to extend the leg first because it's bigger and heavier, and it allows me to get my body in the right position that it needs to be in. So again, I push the heel away, lift the abdomen from the floor. Then you find your foundation. If you're struggling, you can touch and go with your hand if that's what you need. Some people do, and that's fine. But then as you work, you want to slowly increase your time so that you can hold the position for longer. And then again, push the heel away. So I'm really working the back line of my body. And then I stretch through the index finger and then stretch even more through the pinky finger. And I can feel my tummy sagging. So I've got to pick my belly up a little bit. I was focusing on other things. It's easy to do. So just come back to your basics. Release. Take a breath. Extend. We'll go one more on each side. Extend one leg behind you. Level the pelvis. Keep everything balanced and solid. This is my stronger side, so I can hold this one pretty well. And again, reach through the index finger, reach through the pinky, reach the heel as far away from the hand as possible, but level the pelvis. You got to be firm through the support arm and firm through the support hip. And then release. Pause for a minute. And then other side. So I extend the leg first, and then I'll reach the arm, and then I start tweaking. Belly in, heel away, finger away, pinky side, lift and stretch, everything. And it's okay if you're a little wobbly. You know, we're not all these perfect robots. And we always have one side that's a little stronger than the other. And that's okay. Good. And then release. So we focused a lot on back extension, really extending the back. Now we're going to work on the core stability, and when we began in the beginning with that anterior and posterior pelvic tilt. And again, ease yourself. If you need a pillow, get yourself a pillow. The first thing I want you to do is make sure is I shift over a little bit so that my foot can slide on the floor. And that's going to be important. So then when we do one side, we shift to one side of our mat and vice versa. We'll shift to the other for the other leg. So what I want you to do is I want you to rock that pelvis again, just small, anterior and posterior. Hopefully you can see that. And then find your neutral. And now very gently engage your lower abdomen. So I kind of lift it. I pull my belly button up and back, and that kind of tightens my tummy. And then I want to arch just a little bit. So in other words, I'm lifting my low back away from the floor, but not, it's very minute. So I want you to go slowly and gently with this. And the goal is that this knocks out certain muscles so that when we do the leg slide we're about to do and the leg lift we're about to do, it engages the muscles in a different way. And we're trying to get the posterior multifidus working. So you extend, you're going to bend one knee and you're going to rest that heel on the ground. And you do that little arch and you slide the heel. And just go nice and slow. And you want to try and get your leg fully extended all the way out. You can do that a couple of times and then leave it out. Check that little arch that you made. And again, you should be balanced right and left side. And I'm not real worried about the straight leg raise, but can you lift the leg while maintaining equal weight on the sacrum? So it's going to, tendency is to drop towards the lifted leg side. So see if you can make the opposite side touch the floor. Keep that down while you raise the leg. And then lower the leg and bring it back. Okay, now you can do this with a fully extended heel. So I slide my leg, I fully extend my knee, my foot becomes flexed. Again, I'm maintaining that little arch in my spine as I lift my leg. It's a little different than a straight leg raise. And you should notice the difference as the inner thighs are working a little differently. Now we shift to the other side. And again, I let my heel slide. I get that little, I find that neutral in my spine, and then just a little lift away, like just a micromillimeter. And then I slide that heel. And we want to activate those smaller extensor muscles in your spine. And then now go to your straight leg raise and try, your leg doesn't have to be perfectly straight, but you do have to keep equal weight on both sides of your sacrum while you lift your leg. So that's the key point there, really get away with that. And again, reps are anywhere 5, 8, 10, 12, depends on you, your strength, your ability. Once you do this video a couple times, you should get pretty good at that. Okay, so we want to work on that because that's really a different way to activate our deeper muscles that run along our spinal column. So after you've completed those, I call those the psoas heel slides because that's what's working. You kind of want to give your body a little bit of a break. So you can bring your knee towards your chest. Those of you with hip replacements, honor your hip restrictions. You don't have to go all the way to your chest. Do what's comfortable for you. But I like to also extend my back leg or my opposite leg and then try to keep your pelvis level while you bring the knee up. And if you hug the upper part of the knee, that's a good stretch for the lower back. Whereas if I walk my hands down, I have good knee flexion, but if I walk my hands down, it helps me bring my heel closer to my bottom. That's good for a knee range of motion. Again, the opposite leg is actually doing something though. It's not just laying around. I kind of push that bottom leg towards the ground. Start at the top of the knee, bring the knee up, level the pelvis as best you can. One hip tends to hike, and then walk your hands down, lower on your shin, and then that will help bring the heel closer to the bottom. So then you get more knee flexion. So those of you that have grumpier knees, you can try a little hand walk down your shin. Drop your knees side to side, little trunk rotation. We're gonna go into 90-90 heel taps. And again, here's where the abdominal work comes in, but the back of the spine is working as well. And so we want those muscles engaged. So your key takeaways are on this one are, do not let your back change from your starting position. So that as I lower my leg down, the weight of my leg wants to lift my abdomen. Is my core strong enough that I can keep that spine in a nice neutral position? So we start in a 90-90, which is like you're sitting in a chair on your back. And again, equal your shoulders, equal your sacrum, have your hips. You don't have to have your feet glued together though. Your feet can be separated. And then find that neutral position of your spine, and you shouldn't have your back smashed to the ground. So then I'm gonna hold that position as I drop a leg. Now there are several ways. You can do one leg at a time, just holding this position. One leg, do 10, and then do the other leg as long as your back or your hips aren't moving. And then I'm going to do the other. You could also alternate. So if you wanted to alternate, you could do 10 on each leg or a total of 20. I kind of like one at a time just because it allows me to tweak anything that might not be working properly. Good. Go ahead and rest in between as you need to. Again, this is your workout, not mine. So take breaks as you need them. You don't have to keep going through the whole thing because I said so. Take a break, get some water, do what you need to do. Take care of yourself first. All right, back to that 90-90, both legs up. Now, we want to get a little stronger. So if you can do that first level, this is a progression. First level, second level, third level, fourth level. Your second level is going to be able to alternate and lengthen each leg out. So instead of keeping them short and the heel closer to your bottom, you're going to extend the heel, maybe not completely straight, but extending the heel. But again, you've got to hold this pelvis tightly. It can't move around. Your back can't arch or lift or flatten onto the floor. And again, 10 on each side. You can do as many as you want, as long as you're able. And then rest. I like to rest in between each one. And then we go to our third level, which is going to be both legs at the same time. So now I have even more weight that my body, my core has to hold. So again, we flex the feet, go to that 90-90 position. Both shoulders are equal on the ground, and lower the heels, but don't let the back or pelvis move. Everything has to stay solid through here. Very important. And if you can't do this, or what happens is as you fatigue, you'll start to lift away from the floor as your body says, oh, I can't do this anymore. And that's okay. That's when it's time to take a break. All right. So those are just kind of your clues. So that's level 3. And now level 4, you guessed it, a longer lever. So you're going to start in your 90-90, and you can kick out and up high. You can do single leg up high, double leg up high, or you can go to the middle. And again, you can do single leg or double, and then low, single leg and double. And lower is the hardest one because it's the longest lever and the core has to work the hardest. Okay, so fully extending, and now I'm starting to get tired. I can see my hips starting to shift. So that tells me it's time to take a break. And after you've done that, you want to drop your knees side to side. I like to have my arms out to my side with my palms up. It helps me keep my chest open while I do some nice gentle trunk rotation. And again, for those of you that might need a little head support, don't be afraid to have a pillow. I just choose, I don't feel like I need that. So bridges, it does help if you have a yoga mat, but if you don't have a yoga mat, don't worry about, I ask you to pull the mat apart. Don't worry about that, okay? But the key here again is if you have a stiff back or you have a history of back problems, you don't want to lift very high. We're doing bridges. You want to keep your hips fairly low to the ground. You're still working the core and you're still working the same muscle groups. It's just not as high, which is going to be better for you in the long run. So you folks should know who you are. So my chin is in neutral. Again, I like my hands open, but this time I'm going to press my palms to the floor and I pull my belly button up and back, and you'll feel the tailbone starts to lift up, pressing through the feet. I keep pulling my belly button this way from here to here. That keeps my low back in a more neutral position. And when I come down, I'm going to come down one vertebrae at a time. Okay, so we'll do 3 peels. So you peel up like a banana. I tuck my tail comes up first. I raise up, I go as high as I can comfortably. My chest, some of you, your chest may start to lift up. If that happens, allow the chest to come towards the chin and then lower down. Nice and smooth. Take a breath. All your movements should be smooth and steady as you tuck the tail, lift the pelvis, peel off one vertebrae at a time. And you don't want to have to look at the video. I want you to keep your head looking straight up. You don't want to have to turn your head while you're doing any bridging. So now we're going to do a bridge and we're going to hold it and we're going to activate our feet a little bit. So tuck your tail, peel up like you did before. Now, as I said earlier about grabbing the mat, grab the edges of your mat if you have one. And I walk on top of my shoulders a little bit more. So my shoulder blades come towards each other a little bit more. And then I pull the mat apart. So I'm trying to take my arms away from each other as I pull the mat apart. Pull my tummy in. Chest lifts as I try to bring it. I'm not bringing my chin to my chest. I'm bringing my chest towards my chin. And then you can push a little bit with your thighs. So I imagine pushing my feet towards the end of my mat. And then we lower down one vertebrae at a time. And again, those of you with chronic back issues, you can stay low and still do all of those things. Just don't go high. And here we go. We're going to press again. Lift up, peel up, lift the chest. Send your tailbone towards the back of your knees. Belly button comes towards the back ribs. Lift up, pull apart. Maybe you can walk your shoulders under a little more. Some of you with good flexibility might even be able to join your hands underneath you. Mine are not so good. I'm better off holding the mat. And then we begin to march. So you're going to march your feet in place and pay attention to what your hips are doing while you're marching. And then take a break, slowly lower down. So we're going to peel up again. This time, if you want, you can pull the mat apart, you can press your hands into the mat, you can interlace your hands, whatever is comfortable for you. And then begin to march again. And this time, pay attention to what's happening at your hips. Do you have a hip that drops really far while you're marching? And then lower down. Peel up, lift up, go into your position, pull the abdomen so the tailbone descends and the abdomen lifts. And then as I pick up my feet, can I keep my pelvis level? And if you want to take it out a little farther, you can work knee extension. Both are good. You can pick one day and do the other one another day. And a little extra is to flex the foot. That just kicks the knee in a little bit more. And then lower down one vertebrae at a time. And now give your knees a nice gentle hug. And you can draw small circles. And then go the other way. Good. And then we're going to roll to our side. So this one, I do like to have a little head support. So I'm lucky I have a little blanket right here that just so happens to work really well. Clams first. So first we stack our feet, stack your knees. Your heels should be in line with your butt or pretty close to it. And you can even snuggle up a little bit if you want. And then you keep your inner edges of your feet connected as you raise the top leg. And as you raise the top leg, you will notice that the top hip wants to fall backwards. You don't want that to happen. So I literally put my hand on my bottom. You can use the back of your hand if you want, whatever works for you. Just like you were up against a wall. I do have a wall behind me. I could use it, but I'm not gonna. And then you work on lifting that leg up, keeping the feet together, the inner edges of your feet touching. Again, you can pick your numbers, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20. Once you get to 20, you got to add a little bit because then it's more about time than numbers. And then the second round, you lift both feet and keeping the inner edges of the toes touching together still, you do it again. You raise the knee. And I'm not letting my back fall backwards at all. I kind of keep everything nice and level. And again, 8, 10, 15, 20. Once you can do 20, then you probably ought to get one of those thigh bends. Switch to the opposite side. You guys can roll over. Take my pillow with me. Again, stack your knees so that they're equal and the feet are equal and that your heels are in line with your buttock. And again, you can snuggle up a little bit, pull those knees a little closer to you if you want, and then raise that top leg. Again, you can use that top hand to keep your hip from falling backwards. So you raise the knee. Tummy's working a little bit, but you should feel this more in the outer hip. You might feel a little bit on the inner hip. It just depends on what's working. And then for the round 2, you raise both feet and then you raise the knee. And again, the inner edges of the feet stay touching. This is a good one for hip pain. Bridges are also a good one for hip pain. So if you have a little side hip pain, sometimes bridges can help, a little bursitis. Good. And then from here, we're going to go right into side planks. And there are many varieties of side planks. I'm going to choose to do lower levels. So if you are familiar with this pose, you can go ahead and take it to the level that you want. You can be up on a single arm. But for most of my clients, being down on the elbow is plenty. I also do like to have a little bit of padding because I have bony elbows. And so it does get a little bit uncomfortable for me. So a little blanket, towel, something, a pillow sometimes works well. And the key takeaways are this one are, don't allow the front of the shoulder to pop forward. So as I place my weight through my elbow, I kind of push my ribs away from the floor. And I'm also have my the side of my hand, my pinky side on the floor, and then I'm going to bring it up about just a few degrees, and I pretend like I'm holding a cup of coffee. So this puts our shoulder in a nice neutral position that is good for it to work. You can have your knees, in alignment with your hips. If your balance is poor, you can have your knees more forward. And for some of you, you can take that top leg to help you lift off the ground. There's no shame. So I will start with the lower level, the one that's easiest, and then you can choose to decide whether you want to go harder or not. It's up to you. So first, I press through the elbow. I push my armpit away from the floor to keep my shoulder back. And I use my front leg to push up so I can lift my hips off the ground. That bottom knee can stay in contact. And then we lower down. Okay, that's level one. Level two, knees are stacked and I raise up and hold. Okay, so you can pick and choose which one you want to do. Level three, legs are straight. You should be in a fairly straight line. Again, I've got to lift my armpit and my ribs away from the floor. Now here it gets tricky because you got to have balance. So you can either stagger stance or stack. Stagger stance, have your top foot in the back, and I use my hand to help hold me there. And then release. And then you can stack your feet. I'm still using my hand for balance, and lift. So there are a couple different ways that you can vary that, but play with that. So that was one side, that's my weaker side. And then we'll go to my stronger side. So again, a quick review. Don't let the front of the shoulder come forward. It has to stay in line. Okay. Thumb is up. Fist is moved slightly upward. Have a little pad for your elbow. Get your hips in line with your shoulder. Stack your top leg. It can be down here. Doesn't have to be way up high. Low is fine. Right? And then the leg can help you lift your hips off the ground. But don't let that arm come forward. Here's level one. So you can stay there, or you can do it with stacked knees for level two. Or you can make your lever long, straighten the legs, have a straight line from your shoulders to your feet, or stagger stance with the top foot in the back. I had to think about that. And then lift. You can add the arm. Or you can go full guns, pressing the thumb down, raise the arms. My stronger side I can do. Okay. So give that a go, 3 or 4 good shots. Work up your increase in time from 2 seconds to 10 seconds. See if you can do that. I'm going to show some variations for a prone exercise. Those of you that can't lay on your stomach or it's painful for your back, I'm going to also show an alternative in the standing position. So here is this cervical and thoracic back extension in standing. And this is for those of you that had a hard time laying on the floor. So if you don't want to try it this way, just fast forward to the next thing. So to be able to do this one, we have to kind of lean our chest into the wall, and I can move my shoulder blades down my back. And again, I can work on the same positions. With my hands stacked, I can work on lifting my elbows. And if I'm able to do that, I can put my hands on top of my head and lift my elbows. I am leaning into the wall a little bit. Or I can put my hands behind my head and raise my elbows. I can still create that same contraction by pushing my head into my hands and my hands into my head. And I can even feel that with my thumbs. I can feel which muscles are working and whether one side's working harder than the other. And now from this position, we want to bow the chin slightly as you're pushing your head into your hands. And now turn to the right, and you will center your legs and extend the left leg as I look to my right. And then I can come back Relax the elbows for a moment. And then open the elbows really wide. Turn your head to the left. And then extend the right leg. And again, I have to center a little bit. And I am leaning into the wall. So we really want to reach back with the elbows. Look with the eyes. And extend through the toe. And then come back to center. So you lay on your stomach and you put the tops of your feet down and let your toes point straight back. Don't let them turn inward or outward. So your toes are going straight back. And first, rest your head on your hands and lift your elbows up. And so if this is good and you can do this, then I want you to take your hands and put them on the top of your head and raise your elbows. My head is lifted off the ground, but I haven't. It's in line with my spine. Now, if that works well, then you interlace your hands and place them behind your head and bow your chin slightly. And as I bow my chin, my forehead rests on the floor and you raise the elbows. And if you've got that, then you're going to begin to push your head into your hands and your hands into your head. Hold for about 5 to 10 seconds and then release and let yourself relax on the floor with your head resting on your hands. This really works some back muscles that don't get used that well. And if it's difficult for you, you will have to start at the lower levels. So again, clasp the hands behind your head. Bow your head, let the forehead rest on the ground. I can even feel my neck muscles working, so I can see which one's working harder or less than the other. And I raise my elbows up towards the ceiling. I push my head, back of my head, into my hands, and my hands gently into my head, about 50% effort. And now I'm going to very slowly turn my head and look to my right elbow, keeping my elbows lifted. I'm going to raise my left leg. And then release, come back to center everything. And let my forehead rest on the mat. I have slightly bowed head. Raise your elbows. Lift your head. Turn your head to the right. And raise your left leg. Point the toes away. Keep the elbows lifted. And then return your head to neutral. Lower the leg. And then turn to the left. Again, you're still lifting the elbows, pressing the head into the hands, but raise the right leg. And then slowly release everything, and then rest your head on your hands. So interlace, again, you can have your hands under your forehead, you can have your hands at the top of your head, you can have your hands interlaced behind your head. Same thing applies. Bow the chin slightly, press the hands into the head and the head into the hands, raise the elbows, turn to the right, raise your left leg, and then come back to center, turn to the left, raise your right leg. I have to remind myself to keep lifting my elbows, they keep wanting to drop, and then release, and then lower. So from this position, we've really worked our back muscles and our front muscles and our side muscles quite vigorously. So now we want to give them a nice stretch. So come up to your hands and knees. Again, if you have bad knees, you can rest your hands on the seat of a chair and do cat and cow. Nice and easy, just arch and flex and arch and flex. Just to give your back a little bit of a break. And then we want to do side lie rotation. So again, I'll take a small pillow, give myself a little bit more room here. And I lay on my side and I make sure that my head is pretty well supported so that I can lay comfortably here. Again, my feet and knees are stacked. I bring my top hand to the bottom hand. So kind of almost like prayer hands, like I'm reaching straight out. And then I bring that top hand to my chest. Lengthen your spine, so I'm lifting my head, lengthening my head away from my hips. And then I begin to drop that top shoulder blade back towards the floor. And I'm a little bit tight today, so I might not go too far. The knees have a tendency to want to come apart. They can come apart a little bit, but try to resist some of that. And I keep looking at my bottom hand. I don't want my head to turn yet. So I keep trying to bring that top shoulder blade down to the floor. And once I get to where I think I've gone as far as I can, then I slowly unwind my arm and reach back. Don't let the arm hurry up to get back and let that front of the shoulder pop forward. The arm has to stay in line with the shoulder girdle. So you really don't stress. It's more about the rotation of the spine. And then to get a little extra rotation, reach away with your fingertips. So I try to stretch my hand towards the wall behind me. I'm really trying to reach for that wall, reach for it. And again, I can start with my index side, and then I can change that to my pinky side. And I may or may not get down to the ground. Now I feel my shoulders starting to pop forward, so my rotation is a little tight today. And then I don't like to bring the arm full lever back, so I bend the elbow, place my hand back on my chest as I roll forward. And then we switch to the other side. And again, you have to limit yourself. So if you know that you have back issues or you shouldn't rotate very far, you do so cautiously. So again, support your head. Again, I have a small blanket. I start with my hand, I start with one hand fully extended. I reach, because that helps get me centered. Hand to chest. And then keep your hand looking at the forward hand. With bottom hand, as now I'm trying to get my bottom shoulder blade back towards the ground, but I'm not trying to drop my elbow. My elbow is staying in line with the rest of my body. And then maybe I can extend my arm. Oh, I've got the wall. Knees want to come apart. Mine are doing it a little bit. I'm trying to fight that as much as I can, but I definitely have more mobility on this side. And again, stretch the fingertips away. So first reach with the index finger and then try reaching with the pinky finger. And you'll see I'm going to work a little more on my knees together. And then to come out, I bend the elbow, hand to the chest first before I roll back to the full side. And you can hold that as long as you want. That's a nice, easy one that feels quite good. And then last but not least, good old hamstrings. This is an easy one. So you're gonna lay on your back. Again, if you need head support, take it. Grab the back of the knee. And everybody's different on what their hamstrings can do. So you wanna flex your foot and I reach my heel towards the ceiling. But if I have really, really tight hamstrings, this is about all I'm gonna get. And some of you may even be lower, which is fine. Okay, go where you are today. The goal is to try to get that leg straight. So you just hang out here for a moment and then point and flex 8 to 10 times. And then a circle with just the ankle, the knee doesn't move, hip doesn't move. And you're gonna go clockwise and counterclockwise, again, 8 to 10 times. And you might get some clicks and snaps and pops, which is good. Kind of realign the feet. And then switch legs. So I like to do one leg at a time. And I generally will have the leg that isn't being stretched Normally I have it fully extended. If you have a tighter back, you might want to keep the other knee bent and the foot on the floor. But otherwise, try to extend that leg away. Flex the foot, so I pull my toes towards my knee as I extend my heel. And again, you might not get all the way straight. Some of you may still be here, or you might have your leg a little bit lower, and that's okay. You go where you are today. I have pretty good mobility here, so this one works well for me. And then we point and flex. Again, 8 to 10 times. And then circles. Clockwise and then counterclockwise. Doesn't matter what the order is, but do look at the circle of the foot and notice whether it makes a circle or a rectangle or a triangle. Try to get that nice smooth circle. Good, go ahead and release. Okay, so now we're going to get to the deep rotators. So we want to bend one leg and then rest the ankle of the other leg on top of the knee, okay? And then take that top foot, that top ankle, and push that ankle into the bent knee. So I push through the ankle, and I have really, really, really tight hips, so I'm not very good at this. Believe it or not, I do it daily. And then we walk our feet back a little bit more. So I try to bring the bottom leg foot closer, and then maybe I can reach through and grab the opposite thigh. So I got my hands on the inside, wrapping around that thigh. And I can, the top foot, turn it down towards the toes. And you'll see how that changes the stretch a little bit. So when your feet are, you're in line with your thigh, and then try to turn your toes down towards your feet. You'll see it just feels a little bit different. And then maybe you can bring the knee a little closer. Slowly release. Pause for a minute between the two sides. Slide the other ankle on to the knee. Push the ankle, top leg ankle into the bottom knee. I flex my foot, turn that foot down towards the bottom foot. And then again, I raise up. I can grab onto that thigh. Some of you might not even be able to do that, and that's okay. If you still need to keep your foot on the ground, but you're feeling it in the other hip, that's where you are, and that's fine. So just hold here. And I like to give a little push. Again, I'm working really hard. This foot ankle doesn't turn down quite so well towards my bottom foot. And we can always pull it up a little bit more. And then release. Arms out to your side, drop your knees side to side. Good, and last but not least, keep your knees bent. Just bring your arms overhead and see if your movement isn't a lot better. We worked our spine from all different angles. And now when I started, I was having a hard time reaching the ground. And still a little issue with the right, but better. I hope you enjoyed this floor routine. Give it a try every couple of weeks just to shake up your routine a little bit. It's amazing how you can pick up more and more details as you work your body in finer movement patterns. Please subscribe.